Coming up on this episode of the Model 3 Owners Club show.
We have some more Model 3 updates for you.
Motor Trend Car of the Year. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Tesla semi-truck.
Other manufacturer news.
These stories and much more coming, and mailbag time.
All right.
We'll be right back.
Well, welcome to our pre-Christmas edition of the Model 3 Owners Club show. My name is Kenneth Pecor.
I'm Trevor Page, and this is episode 26. So
already, wow.
Time flies when you're having fun.
We are having fun, and we are sporting our Christmas sweaters.
Quite festive today.
Quite
I sense
festive.
a little bit of a drinking theme going on.
You know, we got these folks, independently, not talking to each other, and there is a theme. Mine says holiday beers.
Yeah, I'm Frothy the Snowman.
Frothy the Snowman. It's just because we're Canadians, eh? Doesn't mean that's all we do is drink beer. But,
well, we got to keep warm in the winter.
But we got to keep warm, exactly. So welcome to our festive show. Let's get right into it. We got a lot of stuff to cover for today in the Model 3 news category. I guess the big news recently is that general public deliveries have started. Now, we knew earlier, but, because we always have inside information here. Somehow we get it.
Uh-huh.
But that there are notices going out to Model 3 people now to configure their orders, and that there should be some deliveries this month. We don't have any indication of how many, but I know that there are some sightings saying that there are hundreds out in different places.
That's right. The Fremont lot has tons of them. The new delivery center, they're just opened in Marina Del Rey.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. So, a lot of you are going to be getting some Model 3s as a Christmas present this year. So, we really congratulate you on that. Mm-hmm. We're quite jealous.
Exactly. Now, that process, just to remind folks, so once you get that email or notification that you can now take your reservation and convert it to an order, what are those steps quickly?
Well, my understanding, of course, and I've talked to a lot of people about this because the forums, of course, are live because everybody's getting the configurations, is that you configure your vehicle. First you get the email, and it has a unique link. You go in, and then it pulls up the configurator, and there's lots of videos, of course, of the configurator online. You can look at that. You configure the car that you want, you press confirm, and then the actual process starts where you go through 5 or 6 steps. It does require an additional $2,500 US deposit on the car, so it's $3,500.
It's really just kind of firming up the order now.
Yeah, exactly. Now you put your $1,000 down plus another $2,500, and then the remainder is due on delivery. And they will give you an approximate delivery date at that point. Most of the people that I've been reading online are getting anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks, but some people are starting to take deliveries now, and they're saying it's about a 2-week process. So as long as production is still going, and it is still behind a little bit, so I want to caution everybody about that.
Very much so. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it is starting, and it's really encouraging to, that people are getting these cars. So.
Excellent. And if you're not one of the lucky few that are getting their cars this month, you can always read everything about the Model 3 in the recently published Model 3 Owner's Manual. And I think everybody watching the show has probably downloaded that PDF file by now.
If not, we'll link it in the show description. Take some time, read it. I will caution, keep in mind, it goes back about 3 months, so there's a lot of spelling mistakes in it.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, so there's some stuff that's not finalized on that. But it'll give you a pretty good idea of what the car's capable of and where the features are and stuff. And, of course, encourage you, if you haven't seen it, watch our video where we reviewed the whole car. No, not reviewed.
In-depth.
An early in-depth look
at it. Exactly.
We're not professional reviewers.
Now, in our in-depth video, one of the things I did want to point out, so when we first did that video, obviously it was a little time ago, and I went through, or both of us went through the owner's manual and picked out a few things that seemed to have changed. Now, we know that the software is being updated constantly.
It still is.
Just recently, as a couple of days ago, we got some more information that there are a few enhancements done. But, I think one of the main things that happened with the update process on the Model 3 is that adaptive cruise is now in there because it's listed into the manual, and emergency braking just got added. Which are 2 critical safety features, and they're basically status quo now from a safety perspective. One thing I picked out is that, and I know you mentioned it in our video, is that the energy bar as you're driving was green and gray, I think, at the time. And now it's gone green and red. And you had actually mentioned, gee, it should be red. So
everybody's in the software development team at Tesla, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
If you took our constructive criticism.
Exactly. And another feature, once that it's in park, by pressing the park button again on the stock, it opens or unlocks all the doors. So it doesn't
like
physically swing them out, but it unlocks the doors, which is something that wasn't there when we looked at the car. I made a quick list. The fog lights, they don't state that there's a control to turn them on separately, that they come on with the lights in the manual. But I thought that we could engage them separately before, but I'm not. I was trying to remember that
I can't
fact
remember
when we were
now.
down
It's been
there
a
playing
while.
with it. Just a small little thing. There's an energy savings option, which was new. That wasn't there at the time. It doesn't have still the main
energy
graphs like the S and the
Yeah.
X do, but they seem to be slowly
What-
taking steps there.
What we
right?
have seen, of course, from some of our owners, that are still communicating with us, is that the little panel button down at the bottom
Yep.
used to be only one for the wipers and one for
Right.
the main controls, but now there's four because there's trip meters on there.
Ah,
So they've
yeah.
been adding more information into that
Nice.
little contextual area on the bottom. So.
Nice. And summons was added in the mobile app, so you can now summons the Model 3 out of the garage or out of a parking spot or something.
Auto park was added too.
Auto park,
that wasn't
yep.
live when we had the car.
I didn't see a feature to automatically lock all doors once you're in drive and you reach a certain speed. You know how most cars you can set
right.
that, so once you get to 20 miles an hour, whatever, all the doors lock. So as you get going, but I thought that the Model 3 had this. I just didn't read it anywhere in the manual. Do you remember that point?
I can't, but I'm sure the viewers out there who have Model
Yeah.
3s can chime in and put something in the comments. If you've seen that, please let
Let us know. Now, there was no mention in the manual as well about the rear seat heaters, electric
That's
heat. It was
still
only in the front, so.
It's still controversial.
Yeah.
Yeah. The folks at T Sportline that make aftermarket wheels apparently got a hold of a Model 3 and they
That's
tore
right.
out the whole interior because if you've seen some videos like
That
Eric-
blue, right?
Yes, and they tore out the interior
Yeah.
and they reported they didn't see any seat heaters in the back seat.
Interesting,
But
okay.
yet Tesla's website still says the premium interior has heated seats throughout.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on, whether it's going to be a retrofit or I don't know what's going on. It could be a combination of, well, it was still an early production car.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll retrofit it when they get around to it.
So that means they have to
But there was no
rip out
evidence,
the
of course, in the
seats,
software
though,
of turning it on.
Was there hard wiring for it?
They said no.
Really interesting.
So it's controversial. We don't have all the answers on this yet,
Yeah,
and Tesla's still mum on the subject.
The manual did confirm that it has a regular cabin air filter, so there's no biodefense mechanism available, but just your regular CAF. FM radio was added, of course. They didn't have it when
Still no
we took it
evidence
out.
of XM radio, though. I
No
know
evidence
that's an
of
issue. A lot of
XM.
people are asking about XM, but I don't
But
think
they
it's
did
gonna-
recently come up with an immersive sound option.
Yes.
I think that we
Well,
saw
that's part of the
recently.
premium sound option
Part
on
of
the
the
car,
premium sound. There was some new information showing predictive energy uses. So this is new. So it gives you value during turn-by-turn directions with warning prompts when you're starting to get low on energy. It doesn't have the separate graphs, but at least it's starting to give you more information.
Yeah, I did notice from one of our owners that sent in some information of that the maps is getting a lot of, like, the navigation system is getting tons of updates. So they've added a whole pile of buttons and all this, supercharger information stuff's all coming. So
Excellent. And they've also added it in a service interval or maintenance schedule. So not necessarily a maintenance plan, but they have given you some indication of when you should come in to do what.
Speaking of which, and I know some people are going to ask about it, we still don't have information on the maintenance plans or extended service agreements on the Model 3. That will come in time. We'll see what happens, but just in case you ask, we don't have information on that yet.
And a temporary tire repair kit may come with the Model 3 because there is no spare tire.
You
I know
can
we've
buy
been
it on the
asked that
shop.
question.
You can buy it now on the shop.
Yeah,
So
we don't
you
know
go
if it's coming with it or not.
Well, none of the owners that we know have got
right.
it. So if that's of concern to you, and again, one of the most common questions we get on Twitter or on the comments is, does the Model 3 have a spare tire? No, EVs don't have spare tires. You can get a tire repair kit, which is like the goo and a little inflator or whatever. Don't forget, every Tesla comes with roadside assistance.
Exactly.
So they cover you for those kind of things. But if you go to shop.tesla.com and you look at the Model 3 tab under vehicles, there's a tire repair kit you get. I think it's about $80 US or something. So you can just throw that in the back of the car.
Or go to Pep Boys or your local Canadian Tire or whatever and get something else that you want to get you through that if you need to get somewhere and then call roadside after the fact. Also, the manual confirmed that the roof will support a Tesla-supported roof rack. Now, of course, in our in-depth look at the Model 3, we pointed out what we thought were anchor points for a roof that was under the rubber seal.
Confirmed.
So that's been confirmed.
Yeah.
Towing is not supported currently. However, a bike rack would be. But there's just no hitch points that we've seen so far.
No.
So we'll have to continue to look at that. And then, of course, full specs have been given now in the car. So if you're not familiar with the full specs, you can read everything there or at a bunch of other sites because there's a lot more information that's out there. Some more news that came out was official EPA ratings on the Model 3 on the long-range version, because that's all what's out today. Coming in at 321.9 miles in the city, and that's just 12 miles shy of the Model S 100D. So that's pretty good.
Pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive, considering it's a smaller car and a smaller battery pack, right, than the 100D has. 295.5 miles on the highway and a 310 miles, which is what Tesla has quoted, combined EPA ranges. And these are MPGe ratings, which puts it at near the top in efficiency over other cars that are out there. Gives it, I think, you know how they have those documents, they talk about predictive fuel costs. You save about $4,500 in fuel for over 5 years compared to an average vehicle. And again, that fluctuates depending where you are and what your fuel costs are today.
It'll be higher outside of the United States because, of course, the U.S. has some of the cheapest gas around.
That's right.
So for us in Canada and Europe, we're going to see even more significant savings.
Yeah, I was in Belgium not long ago, and it's expensive out there.
I remember being in the Cayman Islands a few years ago, and it was almost $10 a liter. So if you're complaining about gas prices in the U.S., please don't. Could be worse.
Exactly. Yeah, don't complain about that. We talked about a lot of the stats that are out there, and Motor Trend, of course, is leading the way in giving us more information now that the floodgates are open and Model 3 deliveries are going on, and the information, quote-unquote, ban is no more to be found from what we're seeing. So they've done a long-range first test of the Model 3. It's a great article. I encourage everybody to go to the website and have a look at it. But here are some specs that we've picked out of that. The front weight and rear weight ratio, and again, in a perfect scenario in a sports car, you kind of want a 50-50 balance.
Exactly.
The Model 3 has a 48-52, so which is really pretty good for an electric car, just coming in over 309 pounds. And I think 3,900 pounds. Sorry. 3,900 pounds, and I believe compared to a Model S at what, 4,400 pounds they start at.
It's about 1,000 pounds more.
1,000 pounds more. Okay, so 4,900 pounds. The torque horsepower rating on the Model 3, 271 horsepower and 307 pound-feet of torque, but it feels a lot quicker than that. Obviously, 4.8 seconds 0 to 60s. That's better than what Tesla initially came out with, a 5 point something initially. So Motor Trend's been able to run that, and this is what they do is they actually run it a few times to kind of get the battery heated and see how it performs. They did their best quarter mile was 13.4 seconds at just under 105 miles an hour. That's pretty good. 60 to 0 emergency braking is always an interesting number to look at, because that can really come in and save your life if you need to, or avoid accidents. 119 feet is pretty good for something of that weight as well, to be able to stop. And 0.87 Gs from a cornering perspective. And we've had this question asked a lot of times. What's the turning circle? It's 38.1 feet.
It was tight. It felt very tight.
It's tight. Exactly.
If you watch our video, towards the end, when we do the test drive, actually Ken was driving the car and he does a 360 or 180 UE. And it felt really tight. I was actually quite surprised.
Nimble and just turned right away. So they compare it to the BMW 330i. Which is, again, one of the vehicles that it targets. And, the overall response was that the M3 is faster and it's better at stopping. It's got a slightly smaller trunk, but it has a frunk. So there's some advantages there, makes up for it. And when you look at incentive pricing, it only comes out about $1,000 US more than the similar equipped 330i.
Plus, it's a better looking car, in my opinion.
Mine too. And it's environmentally friendly. So check their site. They've got more specs that you can shake a stick at, so you don't need to email us to ask about specs on this car. It's all out there now. Tesla has it, and now Motor Trend has done a great test, so we thank them for doing that.
I expect to see more from Motor Trend as time goes when they do a longer term review on the car. So right now, even though the article is a little short on some of the stuff, expect more from them in the near future.
And of course, we're seeing more Model 3s out there, even though we mentioned that deliveries are coming in more numbers. We've seen some in Canada. There's some Model 3 that was spotted in Squamish, BC, and a couple in Montreal, your old stomping grounds. So we like that. Of course, there are other Model 3s being seen around the world. They were seen in, there was one seen in the Netherlands in September, and now in Germany recently. The one in Germany was interesting because it apparently was charging with the use of a Mennekes Type 2 to Tesla plug adapter, because they don't, where it was plugged in wasn't a supercharging station. So maybe they're testing something there, or,
well,
because they have a different system in Europe. Right?
Well, of course they do, but of course, when the Model 3 does arrive in Europe, it'll have the proper connector. You won't need any adapters. It'll just come with with.
So it was adapter. An NA North American vehicle that they were just.
Oh yeah, they just brought it over because again, they're still doing testing, still long range testing. Just because they started production on the car doesn't mean that they that they stopped production or testing on the car. So they're still doing it. Still no evidence of when homologation will actually occur for Europe and Canada. We're still waiting for that. Of course, as we know, if you're a Model 3 reservation holder, you can go to the estimate. It still says late 2018. So until we hear anything different on the production system, on the production line, you kind of have to still go by those numbers.
Now, we mentioned about stockpiling and seeing more Model 3s out there. There are reports that have recently said that they're seeing hundreds now in parking lots in different areas around California. We mentioned the Marina del Rey lot earlier that somebody had counted around 50 a week or so ago. Now, I can tell you that in our sources inside EVs, and we thank them for doing this, they do a monthly sales. They look at all the manufacturers and their reported sales, and they include plug-in vehicles. So anything that's electrified from a consumer transport perspective. So not trucks and commercial vehicles, but consumer. And they put the sales listings together every month. And they came out with a year-to-date number of Model 3s that have been sold. I think this would be delivered numbers, because that's typically what Tesla reports, correct? Delivered numbers?
That's all they report.
So not necessarily built, but delivers. And then they talk about in transit and other stuff too. So 712 Model 3s have been delivered up until the end of November of this year.
Okay, so they're still December.
So they're still way behind. We did our prediction earlier this year. We thought they might do 25 to 35,000 Model 3s by the end of the year. Our good friend Roger in his book was conservatively around 25,000 as well, pessimistically 10,000. So even that sounds pretty high from a delivery standpoint. I know that we're seeing a lot of articles out there. People are saying, oh, I'm seeing hundreds now in parking lots. I just think people take those a little bit lightly. Hundreds could mean 80, or it could mean 300, right? Unless you're out there physically counting them. I think they're going to be stretched to hit 1,000 deliveries. They've got 1 month to do 300 and something. Let's say just under 300 deliveries. They may do it. I think they're going to be around that mark. What do you think?
Well, I do know that Tesla is in the midst of a fourth quarter push.
They are pushing hard,
very, very hard to get as many S, X's, and 3s delivered as much as possible. We will have definitive numbers early in January when they have their the fourth quarter financial call, when they announce what their deliveries are and where they stand. But we're still getting reports, and I see them almost on a daily basis. I picked up my Model 3. I just got this. I mean, it's all over Facebook. It's on Reddit. It's on our forums. So they are doing deliveries, but it's tough to get a tally. Everybody's focusing on VIN numbers, but VIN numbers,
right?
Okay, they're VIN numbers, but it doesn't mean the car's actually delivered. So it's one thing to look at the other. So I think, and I don't quote me on this, but I mean the VIN numbers were in the 2300s right now, something like that. Yeah. So I think it's still early days, and Tesla did say that they really expect to get at the higher rates probably towards the end of March. Yeah. So we still got another 3 months or so.
And so for this year, I mean, I'm still a little pessimistic on the numbers. I really hope that they come out and deliver 5,000 or whatever. I mean, but we have 1 month and they're at 712. I mean, what are they going to get out? 300 to 500 maybe this month, maybe 1,000. I mean, it'll be tough. So I hope they get out. I know they're pushing hard on S and X's. They've had a great year so far. They've delivered over 22,000 Model S's and 18,000 Model X's. And this is just, by the way, U.S. numbers only. This isn't worldwide numbers, because they're having a great year worldwide. Specifically. Norway's going crazy again, and all these other areas.
I think we're going to see a really big blockbuster quarter. Tesla kind of predicted it, but I think they're going to exceed it by a pretty wide margin. Right. We'll see. I'm not a financial financial analyst or whatever, but it's by all indications from what I've heard and I've talked to people, it's going to be a killer quarter.
But we know their last quarter suffered because of all the investments that they've been making in ramping up for the 3 and getting the Tesla Semi going and all these other stuff that they're into. So that took a hit on profitability. Now we should see the tide turn. Whether this will be a profitable quarter will remain to be seen, but it should be it'll be, as we say, much better than it was last quarter.
I know it's disappointing. I know a lot of our reviewers are chiming in and they're saying, I'm very disappointed by the numbers. I was hoping to get my car by the end of the year. But you know what? If it means that it's a better quality car and it has less issues, on deliveries, because I'm kind of going back to the early days of the Model X, which was their last product launch. They had a lot of problems with the car. So the last thing you want is a mass market car that is so important to the company to have quality issues that it would be disastrous for them. So I'm disappointed too. I'd love to have a Model 3 in my driveway for Christmas, but at the end of the day, if it means waiting a few months and then you get a better quality car, or so they start a little slow, I think we'll all be better off.
So stay tuned. We'll keep tracking numbers and let you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's quickly talk about the Semi. So if you've got $150,000 US sitting in your pocket, making a hole, and you want to do something with it, you could order a 300-mile, put a reservation in for a 300-mile range Semi. Don't you want a Semi in your driveway? Man, you'd look good.
Yeah, color boy.
Does it have one of those?
Oh yeah,
I think it has. Does it have a horn?
I don't know. I know it has a horn.
See the string.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll put one in just for, and have some. You can change the sound. Software sound. So the pricing was announced on the Semi, $150,000 for the 300-mile range and $180,000 for the 500-mile range, and that's much better, I think, or in line. Like when we talked about it initially, we were very high in our pricing. Yeah. And we got a bunch of emails going, "Oh, you guys are really high. It can't be that high because it just doesn't make sense." Now, we're not in the trucking industry, so we were just taking a stab at it. But this seems to be, from what I'm reading, very much in line with that industry, and combining with the fuel savings, and if the cost to charge is what Elon says it's going to stay at, then it makes it a very financially viable machine for that industry. All the data's been supporting that.
Well, it seems like almost every few days we're getting another announcement of a company putting deposits down on these reservations. Yep. Pepsi, for example, just placed the largest reservation, 100 trucks.
100 trucks, yeah.
And I've heard internally that the number is just over 2,000 so far.
Nice. Excellent.
So
that's pretty good.
This truck has got legs. So hopefully Tesla can bring it to production. Yeah. And of course, that's the other question we get a lot. Of course, where are they going to build this thing? Because, the Fremont factory, you look, if they're building 2,000 cars a year or whatever the case may be, or even the Roadster for that matter, very bespoke cars. Low, we're not talking about Model 3, 500,000. Right. They could build these in a smaller facility or just build something, or maybe even move it over to the Gigafactory. Don't forget, the Gigafactory is still only, what is it, 30% finished now?
Yeah, I don't think it's even half.
Right? And they keep talking, 2020, it's going to be 100%. So they still, so there's some land out there, and I think that there's going to be some announcements as far as that's concerned.
Agreed.
As far as using more of that footprint over there over time. So,
but again, great specs on that Semi. If you weren't aware of it, 0 to 60 and with an 80,000 pound load in 20 seconds. And if you've been getting on the highway to accelerate up to speed behind a transport truck pulling a load, you know how long it takes them to get up there.
On my way here, and I'm so frustrating. Why can't this be a Tesla Semi?
I know. 5% grades is a 60 mile an hour. It can handle a 5% grade,
I
which is
drive
amazing. One. Yeah, I mean, we know the 0 to 60 empty is a crazy number of 6 seconds or something like that. It's pretty fast.
Yeah.
It's got 4 independent motors on the rear axles for the powertrain. It's less than 2 kilowatt hours per mile from an energy consumption, which estimates to about a $200,000 plus US fuel savings in a life cycle, a typical truck life cycle. As you mentioned, more companies are pre-ordering, including the latest Pepsi, and first delivery should start calendar year 2019. So maybe December 31st, 2019.
Maybe.
It's still in the calendar year. We'll see. Good luck for them on the Tesla Semi, and we'll keep our eyes on that. We got to talk about charging, as always, on our show. That's pretty important.
It is super important.
Reminding people about the infrastructure. Good news for North America that Tesla is now expanding their destination charging station program. They've reached a deal with Hilton Hotels. And this is to add their level 2 wall chargers and connect Tesla connectors to Hilton Hotels. There's 144 properties in the U.S. that have it installed now, and there's 86 more coming. So for around 300 or so for the year, or close to 300 for that. And that, of course, remember that they're continuing to grow their supercharging and destination charger programs, and they've passed over 5,000 destination chargers worldwide locations.
I thought,
so,
wasn't the goal 15,000, right?
For destination?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think they said at the Model 3 reveal last year, the number 15,000 just popping into my head right now. Yeah, they definitely need to expand that. But on the supercharger front, it's growing like crazy. Like here in the GTA, the Greater Toronto area, there's like 5 or 6 of them going up right now, and they're all 20 stalls. So these are the exterior, the white ones. Red and white ones, I should say. And they're going like crazy. So Vaughan Mills is just finished right now. It's not live yet, though. The new one in Barrie's live. There's one going in Lime Ridge Mall in Hamilton. CF Markdale, Sherway Gardens, Square One. I mean, there's tons of them. So it seems to be that some of the ones that were on the map for 2018 have been pushed up a little bit.
Good. Well, that's hopefully to coincide with more deliveries of Tesla's branded cars for this quarter, as we talked about earlier, that they're really pushing hard. So, and they need that infrastructure to support.
I think it'll be even more encouraging once we see more of the East Coast getting filled in. I mean, Toronto's all great and all, but we really need stuff on the East Coast and fill in the gap between, say, whatever it is, it's Alberta to Ontario, because there's like a big wasteland out there as far as superchargers are concerned. So if they can fill that in over the next 6 months to a year, we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, it's a road warrior wasteland out there. You got to, hijack a fuel truck. No. Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, you were just twittering earlier about some of the stalls in one of the malls, all these Tesla superchargers, and they're all full of other cars. But if it's not live, I didn't know it wasn't live. If it's not live, there's not much you can do. But if it goes live, our advice, if you're in a mall or somewhere where Tesla has a supercharger and there are non-Tesla, non-EVs parked there, and it's live, go to whoever runs that establishment and complain to them. If it's a mall, typically they're private property. They have their own security, their own parking patrol and enforcement. They typically don't bring in the police for something like that, or municipal parking, unless they subcontract back to them because it is private property. But complain about it. Because, and I know that you've mentioned that before.
Well, look, if somebody's parking in a handicap spot, they're going to get fined.
Absolutely.
Right? They enforce it. So, when you see stuff like this, which is, Vaughan Mills, and this picture was just taken, and you've got all the spots that are iced, I mean, that's just not acceptable. So.
Now, again, if it's not activated, though, you might not be able to.
Well, when the time comes. If it's activated, hopefully they'll put some signage up to try and curb that stuff. But my opinion is that it should be enforced a little bit more.
Yep.
If you're going to put it in a public place like that.
Totally agree. And speaking of chargers, there was an interesting article that came out by an organization called EV Sales Blog, or a blog that came out, and they are looking at the comparison between CHAdeMO, CCS Combo, and Tesla Supercharging, which are really the only three that are out there today. And there's different variances, like CCS 1 and 2 and so forth. But those are the three main types of charging. And they've been following the sales or the adoption of cars and the charging types worldwide, and they've seen the gap between these has shrunk a lot this year. Specifically, CHAdeMO is still the number one, but the gap between CCS and Tesla has closed quite a lot. And it seems to be, we're looking at a graph that we have up here as well, that Tesla and CCS are actually almost neck and neck as far as adoption. When you look at those numbers, you can see how fast they've increased and how CHAdeMO has decreased, which is interesting.
Well, it has
makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think it's important for people to remember the CHAdeMO standard is more of a Japanese standard, so it's mostly the Japanese cars that are still using this. All of the other manufacturers, on the other hand, have jumped onto CCS. So that's why we're seeing this graph starting to grow. And of course, Tesla growing at the same rate as well. So those are the two that are really happening right now. I think over time that CCS and of course the Tesla chargers will far surpass CHAdeMO. I do know that all the fast DC chargers, at least here in Ontario, that are being deployed are both CHAdeMO and CCS, which is great because, I mean, the only adapter you can buy for Tesla is the CHAdeMO adapter. There's no need to have a CCS if all the chargers are both. But
I thought I saw an aftermarket. Somebody made one for CCS, but I could be wrong.
Maybe you're thinking about the Tesla to J1772, so that you could use a Tesla charger on another car. That is available, by the way, folks. I'll try and remember to put a link in the video description if you want to look at the. I think it's about $250 US. So if you happen to have a Tesla charger, an AC charger, not the superchargers because that doesn't work. But if you have like a Tesla wall connector or whatever, and you want to charge a standard car that has the J connector on it, you can buy this adapter. So
Right, I've seen that. And there's a company, I believe in the U.S., that's called Fast Charge, and they've been developing, or they are developing, a prototype system that'll handle 450 kilowatt charging. Now, we've heard 350 as fast DC charge or ultra fast. Now we're starting to see 450 being talked about out there, and this is they can provide that by using cooling. To cool the charging cables, the plugs, and the vehicle power sockets even. And when you look at the specs, 900 volts at 500 amps to achieve an under 15-minute fast charge. And again, we've talked about this on many shows, about that experience. Going to the gas pump today versus charging in the future will slowly come down and will become an equal type of experience.
We're very
and it's
close,
technologies like this that'll come in the next few years that'll help to get there.
Yeah, it's interesting to note, though, that they're liquid cooling the cables. Now, Tesla had done this as well. I think it was at the Menlo Park supercharger that they had installed some liquid cooled cables. They've since been removed. But,
was there a problem? Was there a problem with them?
I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. They test things once in a while, and then they quietly, change their minds, whatever the case may be. But when you get into this kind of amperage and voltage and stuff, you need to cool the cables. And I think this technology will make its way, of course, to semi trucks, because now we're getting to megawatt,
right?
And you burn your hands off. So
it's going to be pretty hot.
It'll be a big cable, of course.
You got to do something with it, right? Yeah. But it's just great to see this technology. Again, like, as anything, technology leapfrogs and leapfrogs. Since we're Canadian, let's bring this back into Canada just for a second. Let's talk quickly about specifically the Ontario, the provincial, what we call the EVIP, or the Electric Vehicle Incentive Program. We've mentioned this on the show before. It's not similar to the U.S. federal tax credit that you guys get down there, or some of the other incentives around the world. What happens here in Ontario is that when you buy an eligible vehicle, there's a list. You consult that list, and there's a price amount on there depending on if you've leased it or financed it, on how much money you'll actually get back in the form of a rebate check from our provincial government. And it was implemented a few years ago to encourage EV adoption, and it's all part of a plan that we call in Ontario the Climate Action Plan, which is to help reduce overall emissions, the carbon footprint, and so forth. So this is one component of that plan. Now, recently, you've been talking to some folks, and we've heard some scuttlebutt about that program potentially being impacted specifically to Tesla on the S and the X rebates amounts. And you've heard that it may be higher come a couple of weeks from now, January 1st.
Well, not higher. It could be severely...
Oh, sorry. The rebate amount could be lower than it is today.
Could be cut. That seems to be the scuttlebutt going around. I've spoken to some people. For those of you who don't know, the EV rebate program has changed over the last 3 years. Now, the last 2 consecutive years, on January 1st, there was always a change implemented. In up to 2015, it was up to $8,500. And then in 2016, they changed the whole thing. So Tesla specifically, they were capped at $75,000 MSRP, which basically just cut out all the Teslas, because that's how much they didn't even start at $75,000. And then the rebates were cut down. I think it was $3,000. So that made a lot of people very upset. And of course, then in January of this year, it was retroactive because they announced it in February, and they made it retroactive to January 1st, and they revamped the whole EVIP program. So now everybody would qualify for up to $14,000. So,
and I think that was up to a purchase price of $125,000 or
$150,000,
like
which basically excluded everything but the highest end, P100D type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's been great. We've seen so much EV adoption over the last year because the rebates are so good. The only problem, of course, is availability of product. I mean, I know firsthand that my wife's been looking at, the e-Golf, and I have a friend of ours looking at the Chevy Bolt, and basically it's very difficult to get a car right now because they've all been scooped up. There's not enough coming into the province.
Not many around,
Exactly. So, but there's always noise out in the public about the optics of this whole thing, saying, you got people buying a $100,000 Tesla, whatever, and they're getting a $14,000 rebate. They shouldn't get as much. And I mean, I get that. They had rejiggered the program in such a way that it was more fair for cars that had, larger battery packs and, and all these variables. Again, there's a list, and you can look it up and see what's going on there. So it appears that as of January 1st, now, of course, they may not announce it till a little bit later and make it retroactive again. So I'm just cautioning people, you have to be careful. So if you're on the fence about looking at a Model S or a Model X, you got to move really, really quickly to take delivery and inventory vehicle. And it's important to take delivery before the
December 31st.
changeover
Yep.
because it's the EVIP incentive program is still effective as long as the car is registered and plated in the time frame that the plan is in place.
Right.
So, having said all this, how's it going to affect Model 3? Well, first of all, Model 3 is not available in Canada yet, so we still don't know what it will qualify for. If it was based on the current EVIP, it would certainly qualify for the full $14,000.
Yep.
But because it's not available yet, anything can change.
Yep.
So I'm just cautioning everybody, if you're on the fence about an S or an X, you got to move now. But if you're waiting for a Model 3, it could be affected. We don't know yet. All I know is that there's a lot of talk that the EVIP program is going to be changed. How much it will affect, I don't know yet. So I'm just cautioning everybody. The other thing, too, of course, is the political situation.
Right. I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Exactly. Because we are looking, Ontario's going to have a provincial election, I think, as soon as June.
Yep.
Is that when they can call it?
That's what it looks like it, yeah.
In Ontario, I mean, we have a 3 or 4 party system, but the only two real powerful ones are the Liberals and the Conservatives.
Yep.
And the Conservatives, which are the ones that are talking about coming into power, are very anti-climate change.
Yep.
So they're looking at eliminating the EVIP, like the climate change action plan. They want to eliminate it completely, and that means the rebates come along for the ride too.
Correct. Yeah.
Ken, I'll let you take over at this point because you've been more in contact with your MPP.
We're not going to be we try not to be political on this show, both south of the border and here at home and in other parts of the world, but we just wanted to inform our viewers here in Ontario about what's going on. As Trevor said, we don't know what this change in the program come Jan 1 will impact. I think it'll just potentially roll back the higher end Tesla models back to a lower number, maybe not
that would
14,
not surprise me.
Maybe 7,500 or 3,500 or something if it's over a certain price point. That kind of, I could see that happening, but and again, the Model 3 is not out as you mentioned, so we don't know, but I would guess it's going to fall into where the Leaf falls into, where the Bolt falls into, so I don't see that amount changing a lot if it does change eventually. But as far as getting rid of the climate action plan, good or bad, you can argue whether you think that plan is good or whether you think taxpayer money should be paid towards incentives. That happens around the world. So we think it's a good thing that we still need to provide funds to help spur EV adoption because cost parity, which we talk about all the time, it's not there yet. It's still a more expensive car. So we need to offset those until cost parity comes. So as Trevor mentioned, here in Ontario, the Progressive Conservatives have drafted some recommendations for their platform on running for election. There's a specific one, if you go and look at those recommendations or you Google R35, and it talks specifically about canceling the Liberal Climate Action Plan. And within that plan, the EVIP and the also the charging incentive, all those other incentives are part of that plan. So as you said, if they cancel that plan, then the rebate's gone, in our opinion. Unless they're going to add it to something else. So if you're concerned about that, we would ask you to reach out to your local Progressive Conservative MPP, whether they're an elected official in-house or they're going to be a run-to candidate, and ask for more info. I've done that. I haven't heard back from the office. I'm waiting to hear back on that. I've also inquired about the potential changes come Jan 1 to the program, and I'm waiting to hear back on that. So we probably won't be able to update folks until we do our show in January. So keep watching, keep on the websites. But it's definitely important to understand that our rebate program, which is really significant and very important, could go away if a PC government gets in.
We
it
just
doesn't
want to
mean
caution.
100%.
Yeah. So I think it bears mentioning, of course, is just to caution everyone, plan for the worst. Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. So if you're planning for a Model 3 and you're hoping to get $14,000, plan for the worst, budget just in case it does disappear, or for something a little bit lower. So if you're counting on buying the car because you're counting on getting that $14,000, that could be a very dangerous proposition. So just be careful.
Yeah. So let's finish up by getting into some other manufacturers' news. Quickly, BMW just announced that they're planning to spend $237 million on a battery cell competence center in Munich, Germany. They're going to build this thing and open it up in 2019 with about 200 employees, and they're going to look at advancements in new cell chemistry and designs, and they're also going to be producing modules and packs for their production vehicles.
So it's mostly an R&D center.
Yeah, and a production vehicle, and a production center, and we know that BMW has come out with a big electrification strategy as well. They're looking at a 3 Series fully electric and so forth in the coming years. So it makes sense that they're now going to get into it. Again, but R&D, it's great because there's all kinds of articles about what about solid state and what about this chemistry. Look, until it's in production and started to being used, it's all papers and just talk.
What works in the lab doesn't always work in production.
Correct, as you've said many times. So just be aware of that. But it's good to see BMW throwing some money and getting involved in that. Now, General Motors, not to be outdone, they finally, I think, are recognizing that the Bolt is a vehicle that is long overdue for them from electrification. Their Volt with a V has done very well. But so they're now putting more money and effort into what they call their electric future vision. And they look at their vision of having electric vehicles that have over 300 miles of range, that are desirable and affordable. And they're looking to build all new platform launches starting in 2021, not 2020, 2021, with a multi-brand, multi-segment market that they're going to go after. And they're also going to work on trying to get their battery systems, their costs down. And we've talked about this magic cost point of less than $100 US per kilowatt hour as something. Now, we know Tesla's working towards that. I would say LG and all these other guys are probably working towards that. So GM's throwing some money to try to, and they've got a roadmap strategy to try to get there. And of course, they're finally admitting to, we also need to get into infrastructure development, i.e. charging infrastructure development, and whether they build that their own or most likely partner. But they're going to throw some money and some effort into that. So that's all good news from an EV perspective.
Yeah, it's definitely needed. I mean, the Bolt's a great city car. It can do long distance travel. The problem is the infrastructure doesn't quite support it yet.
It's still not there. But so good to see GM throw their hat in and finally recognize what we've been saying ever since we've started the show, that EVs are viable. Jaguar, now we've talked about the I-Pace many times on this show because they continue to be in the news, but it was interesting to see that they've got over 200 now I-Paces, prototypes that are out there on the roads, racking up over 1.5 million miles of testing globally. They are going to launch this car next year, I think probably in the second half from what I'm seeing right now, the way it's trending. They've already got what they quote unquote thousands of buyers interested. Now, I don't know if they're taking reservations or just people emailing saying, yeah, I'm interested, contact me when it's ready. But they've got a pretty good groundswell of interest. And they recently did a 200-mile test drive, and there's a video on that. You can Google it quite easily and watch it from up the California coast, which was it's a beautiful scenic drive too, and just getting getting feedback about how the car handled, how everything worked, and it made the 200 miles no problem. Still had a room to spare on the one charge. So good to see. Now that's coming with a 90 kilowatt hour back, EPA range of 220, and one of the unique things about the Jaguar is that it is truly a battery electric vehicle like Tesla, built from the ground up.
So if anybody from Jaguar is out there and is watching the show, we won't say no to a test drive. Absolutely
not. We won't say no. So please, we would love to get our hands on one and do a comprehensive, in-depth video of an I-Pace. It's a nice looking car. I think it's going to give the Model 3 and maybe Model S's, depends. I'm not sure. I have a feeling it's going to be at a Model S price point because it's an SUV-ish.
We got a very good response from the Model 3 video. So if we get more of these cars, we'll do more of these. We'll tear it apart. Well, not tear it apart, but what I mean? Just we'll go every inch. And
we've reached out to Nissan, by the way, and we're on the list to look at a Leaf for next year.
Wait. Yeah,
so
when I look at the new Leaf, right?
They want to give us one to play with as well for a bit, so we're pretty excited. There are already videos out, but until we get our hands on one, we're looking forward to that. Wanted to talk about Renault. We haven't heard much from them other than they sell a lot of Zoes in the U.S. and they're great, and Europe, and they're great cars. They've got a prototype out that's now doing some rounds on the streets called the Symbios with a Z at the end, or a Z. It's a 4-passenger vehicle. It's got dual motors with a 72 kilowatt hour battery capacity. 0 to 100 in about 6 seconds, and they're already touting that it's going to have level 4 autonomy. In fact, they've got some pictures where you can wear these virtual goggles and and do different things. I'm not sure.
If you have to wear goggles, I'm not interested.
I think it was for test. It was for the marketing aspect of it, but it's interesting. But the design has a very much creature comfort design in the interior, very plush seats and all these little things. So check it out. It's not coming till 2023 from what they're talking about from a timeline and no pricing, but at least, again, it's good to see other manufacturers now stepping in and looking at battery electric vehicles, and including Skoda. Now, we haven't mentioned much about Skoda because Skoda is not a popular brand. They used to be in North America many years ago.
Long time ago.
I don't know if they're still selling products in North America because I think they make other things, not just cars. Like, I don't know, do they make farming, like tractors and things like that, or small ETCs or ATVs, or I don't know.
Thinking about Saab, maybe?
No,
Skoda.
No, I know Skoda. They used to be here.
Okay.
Yeah, it used to be here. I almost bought one years ago. That's another story. They used to be in Canada specifically. They were like with Lada and stuff. They were partnered with these offices. Well, they're coming out with 5 purely electric vehicles by 2025. They've launched a program. They'll be produced in the Czech Republic. They call it, one of their launch vehicles is called the Vision E, which kind of looks SUV-ish. It's a nice looking car. And then they'll follow that with sedans and hatchback models, and no other specs at this time. But it's just good to see more competition, more R&D, more people throwing money at this so that the technology will evolve and that adoption will grow. And that's at the end of the day what it's all about. And a cool car that I caught the unveiling of, watched a video from a Swedish startup, unveiled a car called the Unity. There we go. It started as a crowdsourcing. So that's where they got their initial funding, through a crowdsource mechanism. It's an all-electric urban car. The Unity 1 is a 2-seater, about 300 kilometers NEDC range, of course. 22 kilowatt-hour pack with DC charging to get a couple hundred kilometers in about 30 minutes. Around $23,000 US is the initial price point for this, with 2019 being their first deliveries. The video is cool. It's kind of long, but you can fast forward and watch the actual car piece. The thing that stood out to me in the video was the interior. And it's very Spartan. It's very Model 3-ish, like where they have one screen. It's actually in where the steering wheel is, or the steering column is, that has all your functions. And then they also include a HUD aspect as well. To give you that. So, but I just looked at it going, gee, I guess they're taking some cues from Tesla and the Model 3 here.
Maybe the guy who's responsible for the spaceship steering wheel went work for these guys.
Because it definitely looks pretty spacious. It's a spaceship-like. It's got that. So good for them. You know, they're going to build some 4- and 5-seat models as well. But if you're interested, right now they're starting deliveries in Sweden, or taking orders now for Swedish customers. But I'm sure that they will branch out to Europe. But just neat to see these styling cues and what people are coming up with, and looking at the challenges, especially in urban areas where these small, like the Smarts and these kind of cars do well, because they fit those elements. So congrats on them. And one thing that I was very happy to finally, we've talked about this before when we talked about autonomy, but we make the reference to Johnny Cab. And if you haven't seen the Total Recall movie from the 1980s, I forget what year that was,
91,
with Arnold Schwarzenegger, either 91 or 89 or something like that.
Get your butt to Mars.
Exactly. Good line. Well, he rode in a fully autonomous taxi called Johnny Cab. Well, I'm proud to say that Johnny Cab is finally here. Yay! It's made it to the planet. A company called Navia, based out of France. They actually produced these in Lyon, I think it was, the manufacturing facility. But they're producing an all-electric and fully autonomous robo-taxi, and they call it the Autonom Cab. I'm waiting for this thing maybe to transform into something, but I don't know. We'll see.
It's pretty neat looking.
It's a pretty neat looking taxi. Deliveries, actually, they're serious. They started taking pre-orders, and they're going to delivery will occur in the third quarter of 2018. So it's only 9 months away, less than a year away. A couple of different versions. There's a 22 and a 33 kilowatt hour battery pack, and it'll hold up to 10 hours of autonomous driving with 1 to 6 passengers on board. There is no driver, so it's fully autonomous. It has 10 LiDAR sensors, 6 cameras, 4 radars.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
And a partridge in a pear tree, exactly, with a couple of GNS antennas and an inertial measurement unit, whatever the heck that does. And triple redundancy, so that if systems fail, you've got backups on backups kind of thing, so it'll get around. Now, they did their launch, and they were taking big wigs who are looking to order this thing around downtown Paris, fully autonomous, so that's cool to see. Tesla and other people are not the only ones that are looking at full autonomy. Well, that's the end of kind of what we have from a content. Let's get into Mailbag.
Mailbag. Love Mailbag.
Love Mailbag. We don't have a whole heck of a lot because everybody's too busy Christmas shopping. So if they weren't Black Friday or Cyber Monday and out on Amazon and buying things, they're too busy to send us emails, which is great because you need to spend time getting ready for the holidays. But we did get an email from Ann Hazelton, and we love Ann. She's one of our oldest supporting Patreon supporters
Yes,
out there.
absolutely.
Thank you very much, Ann, for doing that. She just asked a question about, because she's concerned about the U.S. tax rebate or tax credit potentially going away, and we talked about that in the last couple of shows. She's wondering if she can kind of like pay for her reservation ahead of time,
like pre-buy
it from Tesla, so that she can make that claim. I don't think it's possible.
No,
right?
Unfortunately, it's not. You can't. The only way you can clarify or you can qualify for the full tax rebate, from my understanding, is that you must take delivery of the vehicle and you get to claim it on your next year's income tax for the credit. But there's no way to game the system, unfortunately, by pre-buying and stuff. It has to be the actual delivery of the car. It's not when you pay for it, it's the actual delivery. Yep. And the only way Tesla will take full payment is actually when you do the actual delivery process. They won't. So unfortunately, yes, I know. We get questions about the Ontario rebate all the time.
Same thing too.
I live in Nova Scotia. Can I take delivery in Ontario and get the $14,000? No, because the government would come after you because it's after taxes,
That's right?
So you can't do that. So, unfortunately.
But thanks, Ann, for the question, and again, thank you very much for supporting us on Patreon. We appreciate it. We have a question from Thomas Lee, or Bosco Lee, as he likes to be known. He didn't say where he's from. I'm assuming the U.S. But he's got a question about the data that's transmitted back and forth on the Model 3 or in Tesla in general. And, specifically when you're talking about autopilot and full self-driving and all the data that's going to be in, is it affordable? And is it required to be on, I guess, from that standpoint? And we talked, I think, at another show about that, but maybe you can explain how that works.
Well, all we have to go on right now is what Tesla's put on their FAQ page for the Model 3, and that it includes 2 years of LTE, and that handles all of your data, your music streaming, your navigation, all that other stuff. The S and the X, if I remember correctly, come with 7 years. Those cars have not been in production for 7 years yet, so nobody's had to pay yet. My personal opinion is I don't think they can just take it away unilaterally at the end of 2 years, because it's so critical to autopilot and the other things. So anything can change with Tesla, as we've discovered, that they can change their mind whenever the heck they want.
It's true.
So we'll see. I believe that they get much, much better rates than what you would pay on your cell phone from these carriers. So when the time comes, maybe it might be $10 a month, or maybe you might be able to tether to your phone or whatever. But right now it's still early days. So if we find out more about this, but it will take a couple of years if the plan actually does go away or gets changed, we'll be able to report on that. But
and is that including the data that it sends home all the time?
Oh yes, I mean everything that comes in and out of the car is fully covered. So even if you do a software update and stuff, it's fully covered. Right. The best thing for you to do with software updates is a little faster if you hook up to Wi-Fi. If you can, if you're in vicinity. I have a Wi-Fi hotspot in my backyard, so cars or neighborhood people are sitting in the backyard, I can hook up to the Wi-Fi. So, but otherwise you don't need to worry about it. It's fully covered.
When the weather's nice, he's out there serving coffee. He's got a little barista going, and we're all sitting there having coffee. But that's another thing. That's all good. And he also had a follow-up question, and we've talked about this before, but about rust-proofing, and the question was really should it be rust-proofed, and will it avoid the warranty, or any components or wiring will affect that?
It's not the first time I've had that that question. We've looked at the Model 3 very closely. It's fully sealed on the bottom, the battery pack. Every little area inside the wheel wells and all the rack and pinion steering components, it's all sealed up.
I remember it's not fully aluminum, right? It's a mix of materials.
Yes, exactly. So my personal belief is you don't need to rust-proof these cars. If there's any issues with that's really on Tesla and stuff. And I don't believe if you decide to do it that it voids your warranty. But the best person to ask is a Tesla rep or an owner advisor or something like that, and just ask them that question. I don't have the exact answer. But if we get a car, I'm not really going to worry about that kind of thing.
And get it in writing. So ask them via email, or you can phone them. But if you're saying, look, I'm thinking of rust proofing it, will avoid the warranty first of all, and should I? And if they say no, you don't have to. And if there's any rust, because we have a 10-year or 8-year or whatever, we'll cover it. So just make sure you have that in writing.
Yeah,
that's all.
I know in the S and the X they're all aluminum bodies, so they don't rust, but aluminum corrodes. So who knows?
how that's handled. But thanks you very much for the questions and for emailing us. And finally, this isn't really a question. It's just more of some communications that we've had with Ron and Helen. I forget where they are, in Arizona. There we go. A nice warm clients. Good for you guys. They had originally emailed us to get some advice about, like, they've got a reservation in for a 3, but they've been looking at the X and they were trying to compare it. And we were saying, both of us on different emails, we're saying, well, it's not really a fair comparison to look at the 3 and the X because they are different cars. Just like the S is a different, they're all designed for different needs. They're sized accordingly, their options, their performance, the use cases for them are different. So we gave them some feedback on the differences between the X and the 3 and what, depending on what your uses are for it. And they really welcomed the feedback. They managed to pull the trigger a little early in this case, and they managed to pick up a Model X, and they sent us a picture of that. So they decided to go with that based on their needs, because they haul some stuff around and they take trips and things like that. They wanted to do that. So congratulations to Ron and Helen. All the best, and I'm glad that you enjoyed our little bit of advice, or that it helped. And again, people have questions, feel free to email us and get those.
If you feel like it, if you decided on something else, send us a picture. We'll put it up and we'll give you a little shout out. It doesn't hurt. It's not the first time we've heard of other people deciding against the Model 3 for whatever reason, needs or necessities, wants, whatever. And decided. Tesla doesn't care. It's still a sale for Tesla. So if you decide for an S or an X, send us a picture. We'll put it up and we'll give you a little shout out.
That's it. Well, that means we've reached the end of the show with no more mailbag. We wanted to do a quick shout out to EV-Annex again. So
the great folks at EV-Annex. If you haven't seen this yet, once again, it's called Getting Ready for Model 3. It's a great book. It's about 140 pages long. Talks about EVs in general, what the Model 3 is all about, charging situation. So we highly recommend it. So you can buy this book straight from EV-Annex, and the website is evannex.com, and look for the Model 3, Getting Ready for Model 3 book. Put it in your shopping cart. Make sure you click on the little checkbox that says the license plate frame.
That's right.
And so that's a $10 value. And then when you check out, use the promotion code GR4M3. That's Get Ready for Model 3. And then you'll get the license plate for free. It's a $10 value. Just pay for shipping and handling. So highly recommended. Great book. Thanks for the promo, guys.
There you go.
Love this book.
It is a good book. It's fun to read. We keep going back to it to read just to see, because now that time has passed, what's going on. So how can people reach us?
Okay, well, if you want to email us, please feel free to do so. And our email address is m3ocshow@gmail.com.
On Twitter as well. So my handle at Kenneth Bocor, and yours at Model 3 Owners. That's right.
And don't forget to check out our forum at model3ownersclub.com.
Facebook, just search Model 3 Owners Club. It'll pop up there.
Yep. And don't forget, we really appreciate it if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to click the like button, and don't forget to share it out for people. And if you want instant notifications, click on the little bell icon right beside the little subscribe button, so you get instant notifications anytime we come out with a new video.
Yeah, and we're 40% or past 40% of our goal now on YouTube. So your goal, that silver star.
Yeah, we broke 40,000 subscribers, so that's good. So we want to get up there.
Proud of that. Thank you very much for everybody subscribing, and please continue to tell friends.
And lastly, don't forget, check out our Patreon page. You can find that at patreon.com/Model 3 Owners Club. We thank everyone who's a good supporter. It keeps everything going, so we really appreciate that.
It does. Thank you very much. And on behalf of both of us, we want to take this opportunity to wish everybody all the best for the holiday season. Whatever you practice and your beliefs are, we want you to be safe and have a prosperous 2018 and a great 2018. It really will be the year of deliveries of the Model 3 moving forward, now that this has been the year of the Model 3 coming out. So it's going to be a fascinating year. We will continue to report on everything Model 3 and the EV market in general, and continue to do what we do, and stay tuned for more stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and of course, as Trevor said earlier, for support, whether it's subscribing on YouTube or Patreon, or just walking up to us. Hey, I love you guys. I meet you guys, see you guys. We've had that happen.
We like all of our fans. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we love the fans. We're just a couple of wild and crazy guys too, and up here in the Great White North. Take off, eh? Yeah. But yes, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, or whatever you're celebrating. All the best for the season. Any closing comments?
No, that's about it. I hope that everybody gets Model 3s in due time. Yeah. And if you have them, please don't forget, send us in pictures. We really appreciate it. And that's a bit of it for now. So we'll catch you in January. And thanks for watching, and enjoy your holiday season.
All the best. Take care.
Bye.